Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Hudrico Live, and today we have an in-studio guest, and we are in a wonderful home, so I figure why not talk about homes? We have the lovely Miss Necia. Necia, how you doing this evening?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, first off, we want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us, and we want to educate some people on the process of buying a home. So how long have you been in real estate?
Going on 6 years.
So 6 years in real estate. Have you ever seen times as crazy as it is now?
Not since I've been in real estate. I mean, back in 2007, 2008, when the market crashed, we saw a lot of interesting stuff going on in the housing market, but no, nothing like this.
Well, it's an interesting time in real estate, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily have the educational knowledge to take advantage of real estate. Some people are confused. Some people think it's a buyer's market. Some people say it's a seller's market. Some people think because of COVID, they can just get any type of deal they want. Being in real estate, what is the facts? Where is the market shifting at right now?
So we do call this a seller's market.
Okay.
And that is because of the low inventory. So just for example, and this is happening nationwide, but here in Las Vegas, just this week, as of Monday, we had 3,200 listings in the city of Las Vegas, which includes Henderson, North Las Vegas, the whole Clark County area. So in comparison, 2 years ago at this time, we had 7,400 homes on the market. So that's a huge disparity. So absolutely, it's more of a seller's market because of the low inventory. Sellers really are able to capitalize on the equity that they have on their homes, and it's more difficult for a buyer to get in. But it doesn't mean that it isn't happening, because obviously, the listings that are being listed are being sold. So
somebody is selling a house. So you still can buy a house. So let's look at this from two folds. First off, I want to look at this from the vantage point of the seller, then the vantage point of the buyer, and then just some educational pieces that I want to put out to people that a lot of people may be confused on. Let's start off with the seller. First off, do you need a realtor? Is it beneficial to have a realtor? And I know asking you as a realtor is easy to say, yeah, of course. But does a person need to have a realtor? And if so, why?
Absolutely. I mean, if you got into a legal bind, would you walk into court by yourself?
No.
I mean, the point of hiring a realtor is because we know the process. We know how to protect you as a seller. We know how to get the most out of your property. We market your property. I mean, and I wouldn't say all realtors are equal. So I would definitely, vet a good realtor who is going to absolutely market your property and get you the most out of your home. So
how do you do that? How do you vet a realtor? Because most people get realtors because, well, my friend told me this person was a good realtor, so they just go with that person. If I don't want to go off recommendations and I want to figure out who's a good realtor, how would I go about that vetting process?
First of all, you want a realtor who's going to listen to what you need. You can have a realtor walk in and say, well, you should do A, B, C, and D. Well, what if those aren't the things that you want to do with your home? So number one, if someone comes in and they fully are listening and paying attention to what your goals are with your real estate, then that would be a good agent. And of course, it's always going to come down to money. People are going to say, well, what are your commission splits? What are you charging? And I will say that on average, in the Las Vegas market, we'll see 6%. So we would ask 3% for the selling side, 3% for the listing side. And with that, though, there are services that are provided. And that's, like I said, there's marketing, there's professional photos of your home, there's professional videography of your home, there's communication involved. You can hire these 1%, I'll list your home for 1%. Well, they're not providing the service. You're paying for the service that you get, right? Mm-hmm. And so basically, you want to hire a full service brokerage, full service agent, because they are going to handle all of those matters for you. When you're doing discount brokerages, they potentially are also going to charge you other fees to do stuff like marketing, which is included in a full.
So when they charge you the 1%, what they're not telling you is behind the scenes, they may charge you for some of these other things like the photos, the other things that come with it. They may not show it at first, but those are the kind of the hidden fees.
Absolutely.
So the 3%, let's break this down for the person who's never bought a home, because some people don't get into a home because they have no clue what it means. The 3% that the realtor gets on the selling side and on the buyer side, That's of the final price of the home, correct?
That's the sales price.
Okay.
Yep.
You want a realtor to help you sell it. You want to help you market it. So what happens if you've had this realtor and your home isn't selling? What's the point? Is there a point where you should cut bait and say, maybe I need to try a different realtor? Or do you just say, oh, I'm going to stick with it to the long haul? How does a person know when to say, this is the realtor for me or not?
From a realtor's perspective, I'll tell you that it really comes down to, most of the time, the sellers. If you have a good real estate agent, they're going to advise you to list your home at market value. And because, like we talked about earlier, we're in a seller's market, a lot of sellers will say, well, there's low inventory, so I'm going to charge $50,000 more than what the market says because people need houses, so they're going to pay. No, just because we're in a shortage doesn't mean that people are necessarily willing to come in above list. There are opportunities like that, but a lot of times if a home isn't selling, it's number one, because it's priced too high, and number two, condition of the property. So that's another thing that a professional will come in and tell a seller, hey, we need fresh paint. We need to, clean up this or that. We need to stage. We need to put some things in boxes and really make the house presentable. And again, because right now the competition for resales are what? New builds. Mm-hmm. You walk into a new build, which they have professionally staged, designed, and that is the competition that sellers have in this market. And so you want to make sure that your home is looking good. And again, a good realtor will advise you and walk you through that process.
When you're selling that home and you say, okay, I need to bring down my price because maybe I've priced it too high, what are the increments that you should go? Is there a certain number you should drop, or it's the blue light special? We slashing prices. Is there increments that you should go by in this process? What does that look like?
I wouldn't say that there's increments, again, and it really depends on the price point of your home. I mean, if you're selling in the medium price range, which right now is about $350,000, and say you list it for $365,000, $370,000, I would say in that you can bring it down a little bit. But ultimately, we're going to be looking at the comps, Trevor. We're going to be looking at the comps to say, this is what homes in your neighborhood are selling for, and this is really what we need to be priced at.
Okay. So I used to own a home in Colorado, and I absolutely love this house. And I remember, like, literally 2 weeks after we closed on the house, they told us we were PCSing. And we weren't in a situation where we were able to be homeowners and rent, because if somebody didn't pay rent, it just put us in a very pickle of a situation. Property managers, if you have a home and you have to leave it, how do you determine what's a good property manager, and what all does a property manager do? Like, what am I paying this person to do?
And that depends on the property management company you choose as well. Some of them will go ahead and vet the tenants for you. Some landlords want to do that themselves, even though they have a property manager. But I mean, basically they're relieving you of the headache. I own a few homes out of state, and I have a property manager that is there locally. I mean, any repairs that need to be done, she handles that. She gets the handyman out there. She deals with the tenant in regards to any questions, gathering the rent. If there were a situation where someone wasn't paying rent, that property manager would go through the process of eviction. And again, because that's what they do for a living, they know the process, they understand it, and they can expedite things. And really, I would say with most property managers, they get good tenants. When you hire a property manager, there's typically stricter guidelines in regards to what your credit score is, what your income is, for them to even look at that person renting your property.
How much do you have to pay to have a property manager?
It really depends. You can find them, I would say average is 10%, but you can get them anywhere between 6 and 10%.
So 10% of whatever the rent is.
Correct.
And basically, it comes off the top.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, for all my sellers out there, there's little tips for y'all to go ahead and sell your house. Sell it if you got it for a good price, let me know, or if you need to list it, got a realtor, right? I'm just saying, plug. Then let's talk about these buyers. It's a seller's market, but everybody wants to buy a house. But this is where people get confused. Is it beneficial to buy a house, or should a person pay rent? How do you gauge the difference, and when do you know when is the right time?
Now is the right time.
Now?
Now.
Okay.
We are at historically low interest rates. In 2020, interest rates dropped 16 different times to be at a rate that we have never seen before. So right now, and again, interest rates, it really depends on your credit, how much you make. I mean, there's factors that go into what interest rate you can get, but I just locked in a VA buyer 2.5%. So ridiculously low. And the thing is this, so even though home prices are going up, we're seeing that across the nation, it's more affordable to buy than it is to actually rent. And that is the case in 63% of counties across the United States.
Wow. So you mentioned a good one. You said VA loan. Now I know there's a VA loan and a traditional loan. What is the difference between the two? For my military folk or my veterans out there, what is the difference between the VA loan and the traditional loan?
So conventional?
Conventional, yes.
Okay. So interest rates typically are really great with VA loans. There's also no down payment when you use a VA loan. So you can get into your home without a down payment, where conventional, they're going to be asking a minimum of 3%. Typically they want, a minimum of 3%, but it can go up to however much you want to put down on your house.
Okay. So can you go into exactly like what is the buying process? How do people get into the buying process?
Well, first of all, you got to make the decision, right?
That's true.
I mean, and I think people that rent, this is what it is. It's a mindset. Most people who rent, probably their parents rented, their grandparents rented. There might not be any homeowners in the family. So there's also this conception of, well, if I own my own home, who's going to fix things, kind of thing, where when I rent, everything's taken care of for me. But this is what I say. Look at the number of years that you've been paying someone else's mortgage. If you've been renting for a year and say you've been paying $1,000 a month for math's sake, that's $12,000 that you have put into someone else's pocket. Where when you own your own home, that is equity. That is money in your own pocket. And people right now are taking advantage of that. I know several people who are taking the equity out of their homes to do upgrades, to maybe do other investments, again, because the interest rates are so low, that money is now yours. You have to turn around and sell your house. That money is money in your pocket or money towards your next home purchase, rather than, again, doling out that money to pay someone else. Pay yourself.
Paying yourself forward is important. We always talk about financial responsibility, and that's a big step in it when you're paying yourself. So in this buying process, in the pandemic, with people buying so much, do you think the pandemic is causing people to buy more? Do you think that's a direct correlation between the two, or is it just a trend of the times?
Well, I think one thing is a lot of people who are renting, or even people who currently own, are seeing that based on the pandemic and their needs have changed, right? Because how many people now are working remotely, working from home? So they need office space. How many people have kids who aren't able to go to school? So now they have kids that they, need space for. Maybe they don't have a big enough yard that, in breaks during school that they can go out and play, do that kind of thing. So people really are looking at homes now for that space that we don't know how long we're going to be in this, and it may be required.
What are some of the things or super secrets that buyers you think should know when they're going into this buying process, or things that they can take advantage of that most people don't take advantage of because either A, they don't take the time to look for a realtor who would help them know these things, or B, people are not taking enough time to educate themselves to learn?
Yeah, so the buying process really is easy. So the first step is going to get your finances in order, because to get a good rate and to even be eligible for a mortgage, you're going to want to have a credit score typically above 640. So if you're in a position where you want to get better credit, then check into some agencies. And even if there are lenders who will help do credit repair, they'll put you on the track of doing that. So your credit is very important. And then, of course, your income. You need to have a consistent income to be eligible to purchase. But those are really the two basic criteria. And once you've done that, then it's just about contacting a realtor and going through that process. And just, if you haven't purchased a home before, there are some upfront costs. You'll want to get the home inspected. That's important. And then you'll also, if you're getting funding from a lender, you'll want to get an appraisal on that property. And so those are two out-of-pocket costs. But otherwise, there really are options in regards to financing as well with down payment assistance programs. And so that's something you would want to talk to a lender to as well. So if you think, well, I don't have money enough saved for that down payment, well, guess what? There's programs that will cover that for you.
So I didn't know about that.
Yep.
Pay my down payment. No. So with those certain things, when you talked about getting your finances in order and getting those things taken care of, buying a new build versus a brick and mortar, something that's already standing, what's the pluses and minuses to both? Why is it good to buy a new build, or is it better to buy one that's already standing? What are your viewpoints on that?
I mean, it really just depends on what the buyer is looking for, but I would say I love when buyers buy new builds because they get to see the process of their home getting built. And in reality, there's like an intimacy that you have with that home in regards to the structure, how it functions, the plumbing, because as it's being built. And
so now when let's say you wanted to sell a house, you sold it. You wanted to buy a house and you bought it. But you bought a house a couple years ago. And when you bought a house, you thought you was doing good because, you had an interest rate. It was like 3.8. You was excited because you was underneath 4. Because a couple of years ago, anything underneath 4,
absolutely, that was good.
You winning. Mm-hmm. But now you just said you just secured a VA lender a loan at 2.5. So somebody asked themselves, should I refinance my home with the rates the way they are now? Is it a time to refinance?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Hands down.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, mortgage brokers right now are busy with refis. So typically, I mean, the lender that I work with, he says usually about 1%. So if you can see a 1% change. So if you were at 3.8 and you could lock in right now to 2.7, 2.6, then yes, you're going to be saving a couple $100 on your mortgage. And again, depending on how much it is, but definitely a great opportunity to refinance. In fact, I know people who've refied twice within the last year just because as they've continued to go down.
So let's say if you have a 30-year mortgage and you've been paying on this mortgage for 5 years and you refinance, does that mean you start all over on 30 years all over again?
It's going to be a 30-year term.
So basically, anytime you refinance, you start all over. And even though you're starting over, that savings is still worth it.
Yeah, and some people, say people have been paying for 10 years, but they can refi at a 15-year, right? So instead of the 30-year term, they'll do a 15-year term. And because of the interest rates, again, it might put them with the same payment, but now, they've cut off some time. Okay,
so refinancing. So looking at y'all heard it here first. Look at your rates, look at what's going on. All right, so give us a last couple jewels for house buying. Anything else you think that we need to just make sure that the listeners and viewers are out there that they know, so therefore they can put themselves in the best situation when it comes to buying homes?
Ultimately, I would say reach out to a realtor if it's something that you're thinking about.
Any realtor in mind?
There's one right here.
Boom.
Necia Bunnell.
Okay, go ahead. Listen, go ahead and put your information. How can they reach you now? Come on now. Let's sell ourselves now.
Well, you can reach me at 801-358-6593. You can find me on Instagram, Necia Bunnell, and you can look at my website, neciab.cbvegas.com. So lots of ways to contact me.
Now, listen, I'm bringing a realtor to you. So if you need a home, there ain't no excuses now. Look, we trying to help you with your money. We trying to help you get a house, everything you need. Really, I will make sure everything is listed.
I just want to say this too, that one of the best ways to build wealth is in home ownership. And when you look at how people have wealth or hold wealth in this nation, home ownership is at the top. I mean, you can have stocks, you can have, bonds, different things you can invest in, but ultimately purchasing a home is the best way to start building family wealth. And I just think it's possible for all of you out there. If you're thinking that it's not, it is. And for all of you who already own homes, another way to build wealth is owning rental properties. So something that is definitely worth looking into. Just a lot of great things with real estate.
And there you have it. So this brings me to the point where I call it my final timeout. And the final timeout, teammates, listen up. Get your money right. Get yourself a home. If you are renting, stop paying somebody else's rent and get yourself a mortgage and start investing in you. It's all about self-improvement and what you can do to make yourself better. Right now, finance and mortgage rates and interest rates are at an all-time low. So take advantage of it. Take the time to look at it. Break the mindset of my mama rented, my daddy rented, my cousin rented, so I should rent. No, how about you change that tree, you change that path, you change your family's direction, and you own something. We'd like to thank our Patreon supporters, Mike D of Brickhouse Barbecue, James Brown, and Ernest Aziz for supporting the Hudrico Live show. We want to thank the time for Miss Necia for coming out. We will make sure that all her information is available to you guys so y'all can hook up with her, especially if you're in the Las Vegas area and you need a realtor. Holla at my girl. Other than that, we'd like to thank y'all for tuning in, and that's another episode in the books.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.